Let me explain something to you, motherfucker. You on probation, right? You just approached me, threatening me. Your words was, we step on shit, okay? You didn't say I, you made it plural. You said we, so that's in cohorts. I mean a gang. You on probation. Then you had a fella with you that was possessing a gun. You are not supposed to be around with people that had guns. The federal authorities, because you made a threat while possessing a gun.
That nigga told gun. Bitch ass nigga. Man, them hoe ass niggas approach me now, okay?
What if one moment, just one heated moment in the wrong place, could cost a man 20 years of his life? Imagine walking out of prison after fighting one of the biggest cases in hip-hop history, thinking the hardest part is finally behind you, only to realize freedom comes with rules so strict, even a conversation can send you right back. Now picture this. A crowded event in Miami, celebrities everywhere, cameras rolling, and in the middle of it all, two people who should never be in the same room cross paths. One has everything to lose, the other has nothing to risk. And then words get exchanged. Not just any words, the kind of words that can be twisted into threats. The kind of words that don't just stay in the room, they follow you into court. Because when you're on probation, it's not about what you meant, it's about what can be proven. And when someone decides to pick up a phone, hit record, and call the authorities, that's when a normal night turns into a legal nightmare. This isn't just drama. This is a situation where one decision, one reaction, could change everything. To really understand how serious this situation is, you have to go back before Miami, before the confrontation, before any cameras were rolling. You have to go back to the moment Young Thug walked out of jail. Because when he stepped outside, that wasn't freedom the way most people understand it. That was conditional freedom, controlled freedom, the kind of freedom where every move you make is being watched, measured, and judged. After being tied to the massive YSL RICO case, one of the most complex and high-profile cases in recent hip-hop history, he didn't just walk away clean. He took a deal, and that deal came with weight, serious weight. We're talking about a sentence structure that most people don't fully grasp. On paper, it looks like he avoided decades behind bars, but in reality, there's something sitting behind that deal. Something quiet, but dangerous. A long stretch of prison time that doesn't disappear unless every single condition is followed perfectly. No mistakes, no slip-ups, no bad decisions. Because the moment those conditions are broken, that time doesn't get negotiated again. It comes back. And that's the part people overlook when they see someone back outside, back in public, back at events. They think the pressure is gone. It's not. If anything, it's worse. Because now every environment becomes a risk. Every room becomes unpredictable. Every person becomes a variable you can't control. And the rules aren't light. You can't associate with certain people. You can't be around certain environments. You can't promote anything tied to violence or gang activity. And most importantly, you can't get into any situation that could even be interpreted as criminal behavior. Not proven, interpreted. That's a huge difference. Because in a normal situation, someone would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you committed a crime. But when you're on probation, the standard is lower. Way lower. All it takes is for a situation to look bad enough, sound bad enough, or be supported by enough circumstantial evidence, and suddenly you're not defending your reputation anymore. You're defending your freedom, and that's exactly the kind of pressure Young Thug has been living under every single day since his release. Now here's where things get even more important. This wasn't his first close call. There was already a moment where things almost went left, a situation where his behavior, specifically online, came under scrutiny. Something as simple as a post turned into a legal conversation. Think about that. A post, not a fight, not a crime in the traditional sense. Just something said publicly that authorities felt crossed a line. That situation didn't end with him going back, but it did come with a warning. And warnings like that don't just disappear. They stay on record. They shape how future situations are viewed. So now if anything else happens, it's not being looked at in isolation. It's being looked at as a pattern. That's how the system works. It builds a narrative. And once that narrative starts forming, every new incident adds another layer. Now take that reality and place it in the world of hip-hop culture, a world where reputation matters, where people talk, where tension builds publicly, where disagreements don't stay private, and where being disrespected, especially publicly, can feel like something you have to respond to. That's where things get dangerous, because the streets operate on one set of rules, but the legal system operates on another. And when those two collide, the consequences don't come from the streets. They come from the courts. Now enter Charleston White. If you don't know him, you have to understand, he's not just another random voice online. He's someone who built his entire presence on saying things that most people wouldn't dare say out loud. Controversial takes, direct call-outs, no filter, and more importantly, no hesitation to involve authorities when it benefits him. That's what makes him different. A lot of people talk, a lot of people criticize him, but very few take it beyond words. He does. And he's done it before. Multiple times. That's part of his pattern. He doesn't just create moments, he escalates them. And over time, one of his biggest targets has been Young Thug. This wasn't random. This wasn't a one-time disagreement. This was something that had been building. Videos, statements, reactions, repeated narratives. He consistently pushed a certain image, a certain idea about Thug's situation. And whether people agreed or disagreed, one thing is clear. He kept that name in rotation. He kept that tension alive. So now you've got two completely different worlds on a collision course. On one side, a global artist trying to navigate life under strict legal conditions, where even small missteps can have massive consequences. On the other, a personality who thrives on confrontation, attention, and pushing situations as far as they can go. And eventually, those two worlds ended up in the same place at the same time. Miami, a public event, the kind of setting where anything can happen. Music, cameras, crowds, energy, and most importantly, unpredictability. Because in environments like that, you don't control who shows up. You don't control who approaches you. And you definitely don't control how a situation might escalate. All it takes is one moment, one exchange, one reaction. That's it. And the thing about moments like that is they don't stay moments anymore. Not in today's world, because now everything gets recorded, everything gets posted, everything gets analyzed. And once it hits the internet, it takes on a life of its own. People form opinions instantly. Clips get replayed. Narratives get created. And before anyone even knows the full story, the damage can already be done. Now imagine being in that position. You're in a room full of people. Someone you've had ongoing tension with is suddenly there. Words get exchanged. Maybe emotions rise. Maybe voices get louder. And somewhere in that interaction, something is said. Something that, in another context, might just be brushed off. But in your situation, it carries weight. Serious weight. Because it's not just about what was said, it's about how it's heard, how it's recorded, and how it's presented afterward. And if the wrong person decides to take that moment, frame it a certain way, and bring it to the authorities, now it's no longer just a moment, it's evidence. And that's where everything changes. Now this is where the situation goes from risky to dangerous. Because after that moment in Miami, things didn't stay in the room. They didn't fade away. They didn't get handled privately. Instead, they went straight to the internet. And once that happens, control is gone. The narrative is no longer yours, and it belongs to whoever speaks first, whoever posts first, whoever frames the story in a way people react to. And in this case, that person was Charleston White. Almost immediately, he goes public. Camera on, energy high, and he starts telling his version of what happened. Not quietly, not carefully. Loud, direct, confident. He claims he was threatened. He describes the encounter in a way that paints the situation as serious, as dangerous, as something that crossed a line. And here's the key part. He doesn't just stop at telling the story. He takes it a step further. He starts talking about consequences, real consequences, legal consequences, because he understands something most people in that room might not fully grasp. He knows exactly what position young thug is in. He knows about the probation. He knows about the conditions. And more importantly, he knows how fragile that situation really is. So when he gets on camera and says he's going to contact authorities, that's not just talk. That's strategy. Because now the situation isn't just about a disagreement between two people. It becomes a legal issue. And once it crosses into that territory, everything changes. Now let's slow this down for a second, because this is where a lot of people misunderstand how serious this can get. When someone is on probation, they don't need to be convicted of a new crime to face consequences. They don't even need to be formally charged in the same way a normal case works. All that has to happen is for authorities to believe there's enough evidence that a violation might have occurred. That's it. That's the threshold. And what counts as evidence? Statements, video clips, witness accounts. Even the way something is said, especially when it involves words that can be interpreted as threats. Now think about that. In a regular situation, people argue all the time. People say things in the heat of the moment. Most of it never goes anywhere. But when you're in a situation like this, every word matters. Every tone matters. Every reaction matters, because it can all be used to build a case. And if someone is actively collecting that, documenting it, and then handing it over to authorities, that's when things start moving fast. Now add another layer to this, the location. Because this didn't happen in some random, private setting. This was a public environment, a high-profile environment. And depending on exactly where the incident took place, that can change how it's handled legally. Certain locations bring additional attention, additional scrutiny, and in some cases, additional jurisdiction, which means more than one authority could potentially get involved. And when that happens, the situation doesn't just stay local, it expands. Now here's where things get even more complicated. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Remember, there was already a previous situation that brought attention to young thug's behavior. A moment that led to a warning. A moment that told the court, be careful moving forward. That warning matters, because now if a new situation appears, it doesn't get judged as a first-time issue. It gets viewed as a continuation, and that changes how seriously it's taken. So when a report gets filed, when a video is circulating, when statements are being made publicly, all of that can come together to create a picture. And once that picture is presented to a probation officer or a judge, they have to make a decision. Do they ignore it or do they act on it? And acting on it doesn't mean immediate punishment, but it does mean escalation. It means review. It means possible hearings. It means legal teams getting involved fast. Now let's talk about something else that's been fueling this situation, the reaction. Because the internet didn't stay quiet. As soon as those clips started circulating, people had opinions, strong opinions. Some people looked at Charleston White and said, he's wrong for this. They pointed out the contradiction. They said, you spent all this time criticizing people for going to authorities, and now you're doing the same thing. From that perspective, it looks like hypocrisy. It looks like someone switching sides when it benefits them. But then there's the other side. People who said, if someone threatens you, you have the right to protect yourself. And that's a real argument. Because at the end of the day, personal safety matters. Nobody is expected to just ignore a situation if they feel genuinely at risk. So now you've got two completely different interpretations of the same action. One side sees it as betrayal of a code. The other sees it as self-defense. And both sides are loud. Both sides are convinced they're right. But here's the part that gets overlooked in all of this. The legal system doesn't care about that debate. It doesn't care about public opinion. It doesn't care about who's winning the argument online. It cares about one thing: what can be presented, what can be supported, and what meets the threshold for action. That's it. So while people are arguing in comments, making videos, picking sides, behind the scenes, something much more serious could be happening. Information could be getting reviewed. Reports could be getting filed. Decisions could be getting made. Quietly, without the internet even knowing. And by the time it becomes public, it's already in motion. Now think about how fast this can move. One night, everything is normal. The next day, a video surfaces. A statement is made, a report is mentioned, And suddenly, a situation that started as a moment at an event turns into something that could affect someone's future in a major way. That's how quickly things can shift, especially when the stakes are already high. And that brings us back to the core issue. When you're in a position like young thug, you don't get the luxury of normal reactions. You don't get the space to make emotional decisions because the consequences aren't normal. They're amplified. Every mistake carries more weight. Every situation has more risk, and every interaction has the potential to turn into something bigger than it should be. Now combine that with someone who understands that. Someone who knows exactly how to push buttons. Someone who knows exactly what kind of reaction could create a problem. And you get a situation like this. A situation where it's not just about what happened, it's about how it's used afterward. Because at this point, the moment is already over. The words have already been said. The video has already been recorded. The statements have already been made. Now it's about what happens next. And that part is completely out of the room. Now everything comes down to what happens after the moment. Because at this stage, it's no longer about emotions. It's about decisions, legal decisions, strategic decisions, and most importantly, controlled decisions. Because while the internet is reacting in real time, the people who actually determine what happens next are moving very differently, quietly, carefully, and based on process, not opinion. So if a report is filed, if statements are submitted, if any kind of evidence is handed over, the first stop isn't the public, it's the system. And in a situation like this, that system starts with supervision. That means the probation side of things gets involved first. They review what's being claimed. They look at any available footage. They examine whether the behavior in question could violate the conditions already in place. And remember, those conditions are strict, not just about actions, but about associations, environments, and even perceived threats. So if something is interpreted as aggressive or as a threat, that alone can raise a red flag. Now here's where it gets serious. If authorities believe there's enough concern, they don't need to wait for a full criminal case to play out. They can escalate immediately. That could mean calling for a hearing. That could mean placing additional restrictions, or in more extreme situations, it could mean temporary custody while things are reviewed. And all of that can happen before the public even understands what's going on. Now flip to the other side of this, because while all of that is unfolding behind the scenes, there's another team that has to move just as fast. That's the legal team representing Young Thug. And their job is very clear: control the narrative, protect the client, and most importantly, prevent escalation. Because once a situation like this gains traction, timing becomes everything. The faster they respond, the more they can shape how the situation is viewed. That could mean clarifying what actually happened. That could mean challenging the accuracy of what's being said. That could mean presenting context that changes how the moment is interpreted. Because context matters a lot. The difference between a serious threat and a heated exchange can come down to tone, intent, and surrounding circumstances. And if those details aren't clear, the situation can easily be misinterpreted, especially when it's coming from one side. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention in situations like this: environment control. Because when you're under conditions like this, your environment is everything. Who you're around, where you go, what kind of events you attend, all of it matters. And not just because of what you might do, but because of what could happen around you. Because you can't control other people. You can't control who shows up. You can't control who decides to approach you. And you definitely can't control who decides to record. So even if you walk into a situation with no intention of conflict, that doesn't guarantee it stays that way. And that's why situations like this are so risky. Because they don't require planning. They don't require intent. They just require proximity. The wrong people, the wrong moment, and the wrong reaction. That's it. And suddenly you're dealing with consequences that go way beyond that moment. Now bring Charleston White back into the picture. Because his role in all of this isn't just about what he said happened. It's about what he did after. He didn't keep it private. He didn't try to handle it quietly. He made it public. He documented it. And he made it clear that he was willing to take it further. That changes everything. Because once something is public and tied to potential legal action, it becomes part of a record, something that can be referenced, something that can be reviewed, something that can be used, and intent matters here too, because there's a difference between reacting emotionally in the moment and making a calculated decision afterward. And when someone openly states that they're going to involve authorities, that's not a reaction anymore. That's a move, a deliberate move. And whether people agree with it or not, it has real consequences. Now let's zoom out for a second, because this situation highlights something bigger than just two individuals. It highlights the reality of living under strict legal conditions in a public world. Because for most people, a bad night is just a bad night. An argument fades. A disagreement gets forgotten. Life moves on. But in a situation like this, a bad night doesn't just stay a memory. It becomes a record. And records don't disappear. They follow you. They get reviewed. They get brought up again when new situations arise. And that's what makes this so serious. Because it's not just about what happens now, it's about how this moment could affect everything moving forward. Every decision, every appearance, every interaction. Now imagine the pressure that comes with that, knowing that at any moment, something small could become something big, knowing that people are watching, waiting, analyzing, and sometimes even hoping for a mistake, because attention comes from moments like this. Views come from moments like this. And in today's world, moments like this spread fast, faster than facts, faster than context, faster than the full story. And by the time everything is clarified, the damage can already be done. That's the reality. Now here's the final layer to all of this: responsibility. Because regardless of what anyone else does, the person in the higher risk position has to move differently. They have to think ahead. They have to avoid situations before they even start. They have to recognize when something isn't worth engaging in, because not every situation deserves a response, especially when the cost of that response is so high. And that's where discipline comes in. The ability to walk away, the ability to stay silent, the ability to let things go, even when it feels like you shouldn't, because sometimes the smartest move isn't proving a point, it's protecting your future. And in situations like this, that future can be affected by something as simple as a few words in the wrong place at the wrong time. So now everything sits in a waiting phase, waiting to see if anything is officially filed, waiting to see if any action is taken, waiting to see how both sides respond. Because until something is confirmed through the proper channels, everything else is just noise. But the possibility, that's real. And when the stakes are this high, even the possibility is enough to change everything. Now I want to hear from you. After everything you just heard, who do you think crossed the line? Was it young thug for even letting the situation escalate knowing what's at stake? Or do you think Charleston White took it too far by turning a moment into something legal? Because this isn't just about one night. This is about choices, consequences, and how fast things can change when you're living under pressure. Drop your opinion in the comments right now. I'm really curious to see how y'all break this down. And if you want more real, unfiltered breakdowns like this, stories that go deeper than the headlines and actually explain what's going on, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the moment something new comes out, whether it's a response, legal updates, or a twist nobody saw coming, you already know we're going to cover it. Stay locked in, and I'll catch you in the next one.